Let's bring in NBC's Dasha Burns in Fort Pierce, Florida, and former federal prosecutor and former deputy chief of the SDNY Criminal Division, Christy Greenberg. So, Dasha, walk us through these two separate hearings taking place today and what the court is considering.
All right, so first we have the motion to dismiss when it comes to the charges against Walt Nauta. The motion alleges that Smith's decision to charge Nauta was, quote, selective and vindictive, basically saying that it was a form of retaliation aimed at punishing Nauta for not fully cooperating with the investigation. Then later this afternoon, we're going to hear a motion to dismiss charges against all three of the defendants, Nauta, De Oliveira, and, of course, former President Trump himself. Basically, this one is alleging that there were procedural failures here, that the indictment fails to comprehensively set forth in plain language distinct violations of criminal law, instead presenting a personal and political attack against former President Trump, basically saying that all of this is political persecution, weaponization of the justice system, as we have heard former President Trump allege against all of the charges that he's facing and all of the indictments in front of him right now, Anna.
So, Christy, this morning's motion to dismiss is over what the defendant claims is selective and vindictive prosecution. This afternoon's hearing, just to reiterate, has to do with a claim of the indictment for insufficient pleading. Bottom line, do either of these motions have a chance of being granted, do you think?
No, I think what the prosecutors laid forth in their briefing is just how cautious they were in their approach here. Remember, just going back to this timeline, this started with multiple requests from the National Archives in 2021 to try to get these documents by asking nicely, and that didn't work. And then once they got 15 boxes in January of 2022 that contained roughly 180 classified documents, only then did this get referred to the Criminal Division and the National Security Division of Department of Justice. Then, again, there were requests for this information. That didn't turn up in anything, so then they went to a subpoena. And then when they had evidence that even after certain documents, I think it was like roughly 38 or so documents had been produced in response to the subpoena, when the government uncovered evidence that there had been obstruction and deceit, including security footage showing the movement of documents so that Trump's lawyer, who was conducting the search, didn't have access to everything. Once the government uncovered that, they had to execute a search warrant. They had to go about the steps that they took. They didn't just jump straight to that approach. They took a very measured approach here. And once they uncovered all of this obstruction and blatant deceit, only then did they seek to, again, pierce attorney-client privilege, talk to his lawyers about what their search process was. And once they had really concrete evidence that there was not just his unlawful retention of the documents, but there was obstruction of the government's investigation, only then did the government actually charge this case. So again, here Donald Trump has no one to blame but himself. This was not vindictive prosecution. This was a very careful approach that led to what is, I think, a very, worthy prosecution.
And we're learning a little bit more about the evidence that they have now in their possession. Dasha, tell us about these filings that were just unsealed.
Yeah, these newly unsealed court documents, Anna, are actually giving us a lot of new information to go through. First, I want you to take a look at some of the photos that were exhibits in those documents. These are pictures of Walt Nauta on June 1st, 2022, moving boxes. This was right before Trump's lawyers were set to review documents in a storage room at Mar-a-Lago, looking for documents with classified materials to return to the federal government. Now, the prosecution is alleging that these images show that Nauta was part of a conspiracy to conceal classified documents from the government. Another piece of information we're learning from these unsealed court documents is that there were additional documents marked classified that were found in former President Trump's bedroom in Mar-a-Lago months after the FBI raid. And the judge who was overseeing those proceedings, a district court judge, said, quote, "There's no excuse provided as to how the former president could miss classified marked documents in his own bedroom in Mar-a-Lago." The other piece that we're learning is how the defense has been fighting this. So they are asking to actually suppress the information that was found, those documents that were found by the FBI. They're alleging the entire search was unconstitutional and illegal, that it was part of a conspiracy between the Biden administration and the National Archives to target Trump. So that is their argument, trying to get all of that evidence suppressed in this case. We're not hearing that today, but this is part of why this has been so slow going. The judge is hearing each of these motions separately, individually. We thought that this trial was going to start today. That's clearly not happening. Instead, we may not see it begin until after the November election.
And Christy, Dasha just laid out a lot there from these recently unsealed court filings. I just want to focus in on a couple of things she mentioned, how the defense team is claiming prosecutorial misconduct, in part saying that Jack Smith had timed his charges to create maximum political damage. The New York Times also reporting that in a separate motion, the defense asks the judge to exclude from evidence the more than 100 classified documents that were found during the search at Mar-a-Lago, as well as the private audio notes obtained from one of Trump's lawyers, which, of course, are central to the obstruction charges, which a previous judge said were allowable because of the crime fraud exception. So, Christy, Jack Smith dismissed these claims, saying they have followed the facts and they followed the law. These filings were from February, but just unsealed. Why is it taking the judge so long to rule on these?
Well, and also, why is it taking it so long to become public? They had to make some redactions, but in reviewing those briefings, there was plenty that was not redacted. So it's a little hard to understand why it would have taken so long for these to become public, and also why it's taking so long to rule on these. Yes, there are a number of motions, but these kinds of motions regarding suppression of evidence obtained via search warrants, prosecutorial misconduct, they're actually fairly common from defense attorneys. And so, again, there are facts here that are complicated, but again, this isn't something that the judge is so complicated that she shouldn't be able to rule on it in a timely manner. And it really does seem like she's slow walking. As to some of these allegations, they really are baseless. This argument that the timing of the indictment in June of 2023 was done purposely to somehow affect the election. I think that's plainly bogus. That the prosecutors point to the fact that, yes, between the time of the search warrant and the 10 months until we charged, we were doing a lot of things. We were issuing subpoenas, interviewing witnesses, obtaining additional search warrants to make sure that we could actually show that this was, in fact, willful, unlawful retention of documents classified documents by President Trump. So it's not like they were sitting on their hands. They were working to make sure they got this right. As to suppressing the evidence, again, as I said, this appears to be a very lawful and valid search warrant that was signed off on by a federal judge, and they walked through all of the steps that they took before they got to the search warrant of how they tried to obtain these documents through other means. But again, once it became clear that there was obstruction and deceit involved from President Trump, at that point they felt they had no other alternative to find these documents other than to go with the search warrant. So I do expect that if Judge Cannon is following the law, that she will not suppress this evidence and not find that there was any prejudicial pre-indictment delay here.
Christy Greenberg and Dasha Burns, ladies, thank you so much.